Welcome to Toddle School Leaders Project. In today's episode, we welcome the AI guy, Dan Fitzpatrick. He literally wrote the book on ChatGPT and education. And what I love about this conversation is that it's not just a list of helpful tips or listicles of apps to use, but he really helps us understand what's happening in the AI market now and what the next few years might look like. It's a masterclass in the importance of adaptability and passion, and I know you're not going to want to miss a single second. So let's jump right in. All right, Dan, hey, welcome to the School Leaders Project. I'm so excited to have you on our show.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I know we've had this set up for a while, so it's great to eventually sit down with you, and I'm excited for the conversation.
Well, and we were joking before pressing record that we set this up, I think 3 months ago or something was the initial date that we set.
Yeah,
And I'm looking through the questions that I had initially written, and they're already so out of date, which is just so wild to see how fast AI is growing and developing.
absolutely. Yeah, it is. For someone who it's my full-time job, it's exhausting sometimes, like just trying to stay on top of it. But it's good. It's exciting though. It's good to see just how much this is developing and how much. I suppose as part of my job, I kind of explore what's available, and I explore with teachers, well, what might be available in the next few months, because I'm a big believer that we should plan, especially when it comes to this technology, we should plan for what we're going to have. Because otherwise, if we
Yes.
just plan for what we have, those plans, a bit like your questions, will be out of date very, very quickly. So it's amazing to be in this space and kind of be talking to educators about, we like one of the things I used to say quite often is, the ability of being able to create video content with AI, generative AI tools, is going to be phenomenal. Considering some of the rumors and some of the things that these technology companies are working on. And now, just a few months after saying that, I get to show them OpenAI's Sora and the fact it can create high definition, realistic looking movies, and so it's amazing to be able to kind of talk about this stuff and then see it come to fruition really fast, which is amazing in one sense, but in the other sense it's like, my goodness, because some of the stuff we're starting to see rumors and predictions of right now, even in the next couple of years, if they come to fruition, then we're going to be living in a very different world.
A very different world. Oh, I'm so excited. I've, like you said, so many things I want to dig into. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, might you kind of set the stage for our audience of who you are? You're a teacher at heart. And could you just tell us a little bit about this crazy journey you've been on since writing your book and just your story?
Yeah, of course. So you probably, people are probably listening to this thinking, "Where's this guy from?" Based on my accent. I'm from England. I sometimes get, I think, because of the ginger hair, I get asked, "Am I from Ireland or Scotland?" I'm from the
I
very
thought Scottish for a second.
well. I'm not too far from Scotland, so I'm about 50 miles from the Scottish border. So I'm from a place called Newcastle, kind of tucked up in the top right hand corner of England. So yeah, this is where I was born. This is where I'm from. I moved to a place called Manchester in the UK to train to be a teacher. Trained to be a teacher and started my career down there in high school teaching. Absolutely loved it. I remember a guy called Tim, who was kind of the IT guy at the school I was training at, give a presentation on Google for Education, and
Mm.
it just blew my mind, because some of the things that he talked about, and I mean just basic things that we kind of take for granted now, like allowing resources and materials to be available to students 24/7 through Google Classroom, for example. I'm like, why aren't
Hmm.
we doing this already? Why isn't this not a thing that the school is already doing? So myself and a guy called Ben Whitaker, who was one of the assistant heads, we got really excited about this. And so we decided to just start almost evangelizing about it. So we started putting on breakfasts for teachers. So they would say, right, come in half an hour early, we'll feed you, we'll do a session on this tool. And we kind of started really organically, grassroots, talking about educational technology. And that very much made us want to learn more. So we started going to like events, more like regional events, so conferences by Google and so on, and other tools. And then we got involved in kind of that kind of edtech scene from a UK national level, started to get to know people, and we decided to start a podcast where we were like, right, we just want to talk about this, we want to interview people. So we just decided, and we very quickly came to the conclusion that actually, although edtech is a big part of this, there's something else here. It's not.
Mm.
edtech is almost feels like it's a branch of, well, what, not just what can we do better right now, but what could the education system be if we actually really embrace the capability of technology in education? And I don't think technology is the silver bullet here, but I think it's
Mm.
one part of how we can help bring the education system more up to date, so that our students are getting a more relevant education and the world can benefit from that. So the podcast morphed into a kind of future of education. So in that, because we broadened that, it brought in so many amazing people from around the world to talk about kind of innovations they were making in education, types of schools that were being created out there that weren't confined by traditional old systems. And one of the things we started looking at was artificial intelligence, and started looking at the capability of what we were just known then as large language models, and kind of we'd got the we've got kind of a sense of that they'd be able to do for writing what the calculator did for mathematics. And we
Mm.
just started to think about, well, what could that do for education? Could it help teachers mark and grade work and give feedback? Could it help them? And just started to explore that. So then in the end of November 2022, ChatGPT is released. I remember going online, and because I used Twitter or X and LinkedIn quite a bit. I remember going online, and not many people from an education point of view were talking about it. And the only real posts I seen were negative.
Right.
So I was like, "What? This is crazy. This could do some real good for teachers." And I really got passionate about this saving teachers' time. I mean, it's almost a cliche now, a year and a half later, that AI can help teachers save time. But a year and a half ago, nobody was really talking about that. Nobody was really exploring
Mm.
that. So I remember just, I was away from home, didn't have my computer with me, so I just put the record screen option on my iPhone, and I just went into the ChatGPT website, because the app didn't exist then, and just asked it to create a resource or a lesson plan. I forget what it was, and posted it on Twitter, and it went viral. I was like, what? It was amazing to see that happen, really. And that was the 1st of January 2023,
Mm.
and on the 31st of January, I was appearing on one of the biggest shows in the UK, Britain. Good Morning Britain, it's called. So you have Good Morning America. So I was appearing on Good Morning Britain, labeled as an AI expert within the same month. So I was everything that month happened really like that was it was just a crazy month. I also got a book offer in that month. And just to kind of clarify that, I don't think I'm an expert. And what I say to a lot of people, especially when I'm giving keynote talks, I sometimes get introduced that way, and I say it's really nice that you think that, but I think I'm just probably a few months ahead of most people. That's all.
Mm.
Just exploring things, and because I've got the opportunity now, because I left my job to work on this full time, I've got the opportunity to kind of just step out a few months ahead, see what's going on, and help teachers that way. But yeah, it's been a crazy journey, and I'm absolutely loving traveling the world and sharing practical tips for how schools can integrate this strategically, and how teachers can save time and work better
Mm.
with their students with this technology.
What I love to hear, Dan, is just that you can hear that you've planted these little seeds of passion along your career. And I think that that's so important that we as educators recognize our capacity to do that, that
Mm.
it can be such an all encompassing job. But if you take that 20 minutes for yourself to plant that seed of the thing that really lights you up and brings you joy, it's just amazing the different pathways that you create for yourself. And you're such a cool example of that.
100%. I wrote, in fact, a year later, so it was the first of January of this year. I wrote a newsletter. I've got a newsletter, quite a popular newsletter that goes out every Sunday. And I wrote where I just kind of reiterated my journey, and I named it "Watch Your Out." Watch Your Out. And the reason I did that was because I remember when I was working in the high school, and it was before I'd moved on to the leadership team. And I remember a kind of a leadership consultant came into the school. The school was in a bad way when we first joined, and it needed turned around. It was poorly performing, and we were
Mm.
really turning the school around. And as part of that, this consultant came in, and I remember them saying to me, "Watch your out." And I was like, what do you mean? And it was like, well, what's your plan to get out of this?
Ah,
And I really didn't want to appear like I was looking to get out at all, like because I was like, well, if you feel like I'm going to be trying to leave or move on, then obviously that's not a great place to be in a school, because then you need to be loyal to wherever you work. And so I was like, I don't know what you mean. She said, right, every good leader has an out. You need to be thinking about
mm,
your out, and it really got me thinking that actually it wasn't something new. I'd kind of been doing this all my life, really, and I really recommend it to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher or not, to always be thinking wherever you are right now in your career, even in your life to a certain extent, what's next? Where could you go
yes.
next? What open doors could you take? Could you go through? Now that doesn't mean that you have to take them, but
But just that mental
yeah,
exercise.
yeah, and like I speak to a lot of people who think of like work, their job, especially the pressures of the education system. They feel a bit trapped,
Yeah.
and if you've got a few open doors that are available to you, that's going to take that pressure off. Because if things get too much, you can go, you know what? Um, on the side, I've been developing another skill. I've been developing a side passion. I've been doing this. I've been doing that, and it'll help you to go. Or I've been developing a network of colleagues or friends external to the school I'm at, or wherever, and so that when the time comes for, I don't know, God forbid, you get made redundant, or you just don't want to be there anymore, or you want to move on, you feel like you've given enough to that
Mm.
school or whatever, which happens to us all. I think it's at some point or other you don't feel trapped, then you've got other options. And I think that's such um a, men, a psychologically good place to be, because you don't have to take it. But and I think what she said,
It's your choice then.
yeah, exactly, you're in control. um and I think what that consultant, her name was Christine, what she said to me on that day has resonated me throughout my career. And even now, in fact, even now I think, right, what's my out? Even though I'm running my own business now and kind of doing what
Yeah.
I love, I still think, well, what's next? What's Because one day I might get itchy feet. I might get a bit bored of what I'm doing. I might think, right, I need to move into another area, do something, stretch myself now, and I need to be preparing for that now, rather than when the
Mm.
pressure comes to do it. If that makes sense.
Totally. It exemplifies the concept of agency, that
Yeah,
when we increase our capacity to make a difference, then we have more voice, we have more choice in our lives. It's just so cool. Yeah,
yeah.
very fun
And,
example.
and you've got to work at that really hard, I think,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
easy to become
difficult.
complacent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's difficult as a teacher as well. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of workload.
Oof.
So if someone, I mean, I imagine a teacher's probably listening to this thinking, this guy's crazy. What, he wants me to then develop another skill on the side of doing all of the things I do in my school. Um, yeah, I think if you want an
But
out,
it doesn't feel like work at that point. It
yeah,
becomes that thing that fills your cup and doesn't drain your cup. And that's how you know you're kind of on the right path. All right. I'd be remiss if I didn't pick your brain about AI, because you are the not expert. Um, so what are that we're recording now? It's the end of May 2024. And I'm looking at my questions, and the questions are like, what exactly is ChatGPT? So we're not going to go there. So it's the end of May 2024. What are you most excited about now and in the next 3-4 months of AI?
yeah, I guess. I think I can answer that a few different ways, but it's really interesting. Not a whole lot has changed in terms of the message of my presentation. Now, the examples and kind of the more specific advancements in the specific AI tools is obviously progressed. But actually, I
Mm,
still think we're roughly in the same place. And I think that's because education does take a while to adapt and to change. I mean, if it does anyway, on a system level. So I think this time last year, it was all about raising awareness and more awareness. I think we're probably at a point where a lot of schools, colleges, universities are aware now. And I think
hmm
hopefully what we're going to see, especially I know in the United States, a lot of schools are now going into their summer vacation and holidays, and the leaders from those schools are now starting to really think, right, actually we've had a full academic year now of being aware of this, of starting to play around with it. But I think a lot of schools and colleges, universities are starting now to go, right, well, what's our strategy? What's our plan for using this in a safe way? So I think from a kind of on the ground school level, I think the next few months, I think a lot of these organizations are going to be pulling together strategies, and I think that's going to be really important for students, for teachers, for parents, because then some guidelines and some thoughts will be drawn in the sand when it comes to this, and it won't
Right.
just be a guessing game. And hopefully it will be communicated to students that of how they can use it responsibly and appropriately, because other than students just thinking this is their kind of secret cheating machine, and I see that a lot. Like it's still kind of seen as a bit of a taboo. So hopefully I'm excited for that. Also though, I think the education system, and this is pretty much any sector, any industry out there really, while it debates and tries to think how do we do this, that the actual frontline AI developments aren't slowing down. They're not waiting. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I mean, if we go from now to the end of the year, I think there's some pretty cool developments happening in terms of some platforms starting to create AI agents. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of AI tools which just do individual tasks.
Right.
ChatGPT, you ask it to write something, it'll write something. Udio.com, you ask it to create a bit of music, it'll create a bit of music.
That's so
Midjourney,
cool to play
yeah,
with.
it is good, isn't it? Midjourney will create an image. So there's lots of like kind of singular tools. I think we're going to move more into the realm of um, companies creating agents that will then the AI will then utilize other tools to create
Mm.
more of a wider project rather than just simple one bit of media or something or so on. I think that we'll start to see that develop over
So as a leader, as an example of that, I might say like, make me my social media content for the next month for my school around this topic, and it will create music, video, imagery, social media
yeah.
posts, all just kind of in a package as opposed to having to piece it together from other
Yeah,
places.
potentially. And also just kind of let's say you got it to write a script for a play, ChatGPT. It's not just going writing the script, bringing it back. It could then pull on another AI that specializes in, I don't know, character voices, the
Yeah.
how to structure a play. It could then maybe pull on an AI that proofreads and gets feedback for itself. So it almost like, I think we're looking here at teams, so like teams of AIs that work together to produce a better product. I think that's going to be
That's
really
wild.
exciting. I think what we'll see by the end of the year as well is more personalized AI, so AI that knows who we are, hopefully in
Mm.
a safe way. There's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of rumors that Apple in their new iPhone, I think the iPhone 16, will probably introduce kind of a new version of Siri that is based on a generative AI that also has access to your like what you've done, like the data they have on you. So everything you've ever done on an iPhone or an iPad or a MacBook or whatever
Mm.
it is you use,
Or the watch.
the other watch, they've got that data. So they're talking
Use
about,
it.
could they train it? So we could see. I'm not saying we're going to see this, and I'm sure it won't be perfect neither. We're still in the early days of this, I think, but we could see the next iPhone straight out of the box know who you are and be able to know how you work and what you do, your routines, and be able to, so straight out of the box will be a genuine personal assistant that you don't necessarily have to train, but knows everything
Mm.
about you anyway, in a safe way, hopefully. So yeah, so I think that side of it really excites me. So that kind of the agent side of things, the more personalization, and then kind of a third element is there's a lot of wearable AI technology being
Right.
produced at the moment, and I have a few of them. I have the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. I've got the R1 Rabbit. I've got a few others on pre-order because it's kind of part of my job to have a look at these and see how they can help.
Uh-huh.
So far, they've not been amazing. I really like the glasses,
Right.
the Meta glasses. But I think, again, it's another strand of development where if we're going to have a personal AI assistant with us, then having it wearable and wearable because it needs to be able to see what we see, hear what we hear. Then I think that starts to make things really interesting. Going into
Mm,
2025, we could have the basis of a technology that knows us, can assist us, and is always with us and has greater capability. Which I think we're going to look back on this year and last year as a very, very rudimentary, basic start. A bit like we look at the mid 90s for the internet as like basic stuff.
right.
Um,
You think about MySpace, and like I remember being in eighth grade and like writing code to change the color of my MySpace page. And you think about that, you're just like, what?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
it'll be the
I
equivalent
remember
of
like
that.
late 90s, probably 96, 97. I was about 10 or 11 and getting our first PC. And I
Oh
remember
my
our family sent,
gosh.
after a few months, we must have got it on finance or something like that. And my parents just decided after a couple of months to send it back because I just
They're like,
generally just thought, well, what, like Google didn't exist then. Google didn't come till I think 98. So we had like a basic browser, a basic AOL email, but we knew very few other people who had an email address, so we weren't emailing people. So it was very, very, very basic. But if you think about it, like was it 93 that Microsoft introduced the first graphic um, operating system. So before then, Windows
wild.
didn't have any graphics; it was just all just text. So that decade of the 90s, um, even though it went through leaps and bounds, like the internet and personal computers, was still so basic compared to what we got in the noughties when we get the invention of social media, we get the start of streaming platforms, we get the introduction
Mm.
of the iPhone and kind of app-based technology, and then even that seems quite basic compared to then the next decade. So I think we're in the mid 90s of AI at the moment, and I think we've got some huge advancements to go through over the next couple of years. Never mind the couple of decades.
Cool. So just to say back your kind of big three, the
Yeah,
one is policies, right? That we're going to have a lot more in place
yeah,
of kind of what does our school believe? What are our norms? How are we working
and
with
I think that
this?
hopefully gives permission to teachers and students to start using it in a more transparent way. Yeah,
Right. In a helpful way. Okay. Second is teams having more collaborative AI that basically just makes our life easier because it knows us and can solve our problems better.
yeah,
And then the third is really that AR VR world. I have a prediction for the AR VR of like where like okay, I was in Florida recently and we rented a Tesla
nice.
because my husband really wants to have a Tesla. And so we were driving in it and I could just imagine like an augmented reality AI thing that is like,
Mm,
hey, Tesla, like I want to go to the nearest Starbucks on my way here. That it would like pull up the map on the windshield and
yeah,
like that you
yeah.
could just like tap it as you drive. I think cars might be that first space where AR really feels relevant. What do you think?
I think that's interesting. I haven't really thought about that before, but I think so. I think it's certainly better than people walking around with the Apple Visions around the street. I think that's just I
Those
can't
things
see
look
that.
so silly.
Yeah, there's an interesting. It's really interesting in terms of the AR VR stuff. I've heard some arguments where people say, well, actually, starting with a big chunky headset is probably the wrong way to start, and actually start with a really slim pair of glasses, let's say, and then build
The
up.
Google glasses was that,
Yeah,
right? And they
yeah,
failed too.
yeah, exactly. But the I don't have them at the minute. I think they're in my car. But the Meta, I was going to grab them. The Meta Ray-Ban glasses, I really like. I think they're basic.
Yeah.
I think they'll be out of date very soon. But I can have a conversation. So it speaks into my ear using a speaker on the kind of
The
the
bone one,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and so I can have a conversation with it just like you would with like voice chat GPT, and only I can hear it. And I can also, they've just released a feature where I can say to it, hey Meta, take a picture of this, and so it'll take a picture of whatever I'm looking at, and then I can ask questions
Cool.
about it. um, and I think this is the start of this type of technology. And there's another product. I'm not sure how good it'll be. Some of these products are promising a lot and not delivering when they're released. But there's another product called the Frame glasses, and they're working on a similar concept. However, text will also appear on the inner lens, so you'll be able to go about your day with a conversational AI in your ear, and it will. You don't necessarily have to always listen to it. It'll bring up text on the lens as well. And I think once you get to that stage, how far are you away from kind of what you're saying for the car, but actually within a pair of glasses that you wear around? So I think that gets in. I think we'll be there probably sooner than we think. And then I think in my keynote, I talk about. I try not to do the crystal ball stuff of where we're going to be in 5 years' time.
The School Leaders Project is brought to you by Toddle, your all-in-one teaching and learning platform and the world's first ever AI-powered learning management system. Whether it's writing lesson plans, helping you craft your reports, or parent communication, we have AI embedded into every step of our platform to make life easier. Our big, hairy, audacious goal is to save teachers 10 hours per week. Learn about how Toddle can help support your school. Without further ado, let's jump right back into the episode.
I think,
Ooh,
yeah, I just think it's anyone can
hokey.
Anyone, yeah. Plus,
Yeah.
also we can all come up with predictions. Doesn't mean we know what we're talking about or that we're right. But so what I try to do is actually look at, well, what's actually being developed right now. Because
Right.
I think that's probably crazier than the stuff we could probably actually
Even imagine.
make.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I look at kind of, well, once you get wearable AI, what's after that? What's the next stage after that? And if you look at what Neuralink, Elon Musk company Neuralink, are doing in terms of installing brain interfaces through surgery into people's heads, and that's not sci-fi. That's happening.
It's happening.
The first person has got that installed and can now just think and move the cursor on a screen, can type into a computer. There's some. If you type Neuralink first patient into YouTube, you can find these videos of this guy. He's literally playing Mario Kart with his mind. So this technology exists, and I don't think it'll be that long till it becomes a consumer product. Whether we want it or not, that's another thing. I think the market has to test a lot of these tools, and I'm sure most of them will die off, and the market won't want them. I think this will endure. Probably not in the form it is in right now, but I think it will endure. And then the other side of it, which is not AI integrating with our bodies, but AI getting its own body. So the robotic side of it, and we're seeing some huge advancements at the moment by Tesla, the Tesla Optimus 2, which they just released footage of around Christmas time, and also OpenAI, the guys behind ChatGPT, teamed with a company called Figure, and they're starting to release videos of a robot they're working on called Figure One. And they're phenomenal. They not only do they have the intelligence, because they essentially have the brain of ChatGPT, so you can have an intellectual conversation with them, but they're then able to perform tasks in a very fluid way. Because of the technology and how the robotics move and so on is really advanced now. So in both of the videos, actually, again, you can search these on YouTube. They have demo videos of these things doing household chores. And Elon Musk
do my laundry.
Yeah. Elon Musk recently said that he hopes that the Tesla version will be available as a consumer product for about the price of a family-sized car in 3 years' time. So I think it's safe to say, maybe not 3 years, but I think it's safe to say that within the next decade, and it'll probably be a lot sooner than that, people who can afford it are gonna have human-like robots in their houses doing the dishes, washing clothes, tidying the house, preparing dinner, and then when you get home from work, and you not only be to have a prepared dinner, you'll be able to have an intellectual conversation over the table with one of these things as well. It sounds like sci-fi, but these are actually in production right.
It's happening.
Yeah, and Tesla are going to be putting Optimus 2 into their Tesla factories to actually work in the factories. So it's. Yeah, we're running. I think the truth is a lot crazier than fiction at the moment when it comes to AI. And I think that's why I think in the next few years we're going to be living in a different world in one
A
sense.
different world.
Yeah.
Do you think we're headed towards UBI then, like universal basic income or something like that? Basically the future of work is that
Yeah.
there's not going to be as much work to do, so we'll have more time for
I
fill
don't
in the
really,
blank.
yeah, I know a lot of the big AI guys like Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, regularly kind of advocate for like a universal basic income because, and I think we have to listen to them on that side of things. Like they know what they're testing the
What's
technology that
happening?
we're not going to see for a while already, so they know kind of what's coming. Yeah. So, but I don't know. I, I I think I don't tend to talk about politics that much, but I think the political world we live in is so contentious and so
Mm,
polarized that I think a universal basic income really is an unattractive thing to a lot of the political world. I think, plus also, I'd like to think that humans will still have a place and not just have to settle with a handout and for them just to stay at home. Um,
I'll challenge you there though,
okay.
because I think that like all technology is done over time, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like when we said we're getting the car, oh, but what's going to happen to all the horses? Or, when like 90% of us used to be farmers and now it's less than 2%.
yeah, yeah,
So I think that the question then becomes, what might we do with all of that time, and what passions and what creativity, like I'm imagining some ornate dinner parties are in our future and lots of arts and beautiful things will be created by humans who don't have to spend their time plugging stuff into a computer or doing that kind of work.
yeah. I don't think we disagree here. I agree with that, but I don't think it. I think it's very easy to see this as like a all or nothing. Like
Yeah,
all of a
gets
sudden,
dystopian real quick.
yeah, all of a sudden within 10 years, nobody's got a job because the robots are doing everything, and we're sitting at home with money flowing into
Wally
our accounts
people.
for nothing, for doing nothing, and we get to go and sit on the beach and talk about philosophy or whatever we want to do. So I think in a realistic way we live in a capitalist society. Well, most of us do.
Mm,
Um, Capitalism, for all it's good, also sometimes treats humans as cogs in the machine,
right.
and will make those cogs turn faster or move the position of those cogs based on what is happening. So I remember seeing. By the way, I'm a major optimist with AI, and it sounds like I'm about to go into a bit of a pessimistic bit, but I think it's just being I think it's about being realistic. But I remember seeing a 1970s news clip from a town not too far from where I live called Sheffield, and in this news clip, they are doing a report outside of a car factory, and they have just introduced the first robotic arm, I think, in the country into a car factory. And they're interviewing the manager of this factory, and the news reporter says, what's going to happen with your workforce if the robotics is going to be able to do all of this stuff? And the manager says something like, he says, in the next 3 years, I can imagine a lot of my workers will probably be working 3-day weeks, but on the same salary because of this. And I think a lot of the sentiment of what kind of we're saying at the minute is kind of the same. Did that
Yeah.
happen? Not at all. Those
No.
workers either lost their jobs or they're working harder than they've ever worked before, and longer hours than they've ever worked before. So I really, yeah, I love being an optimist with this because I love it. I think the benefits are going to be amazing for teachers, education, but also the world. But I think also I try to ground myself in the reality that there's been predictions like this before that have actually turned
Come to
out the
fruition.
opposite way. So yeah, and I do think, kind of going back to my original point, I don't think, first of all, I don't think it's going to replace everyone. I
Mm-mm.
think whenever technology comes along, some jobs diminish. That's a reality that's happened for millennia, and other jobs are created. Now, will other jobs be created? I sometimes use the analogy of IKEA. So, let's say
Mm.
before IKEA, you wanted a table, you wanted a chest of drawers, whatever. The chances are a carpenter would have to make that for you. And that carpenter would probably charge you quite a bit of money because it's taken up quite a bit of their time. Um, IKEA comes along, and now I need a table for the spare room in my house. I'm not going to get a carpenter to make that. I would just go to IKEA and spend $50 on a compacted cardboard veneer oak table, um, which looks all right, does the job. So I think what IKEA's kind of done to carpentry, um, I think we could see AI doing to a lot of other sectors. So people just want things to be done in a basic way. Want then we use AI. However, if we want something bespoke, if we want something
Mm.
like for example, now I want to buy a nice dining room table for host dinner parties around. I want it to fit in. I want it to be bespoke. I want it to be something that I'm really proud of. I can talk about. Then I might get a carpenter to make that for me. I'm going to spend probably about 10
Mm.
times the amount I would in IKEA on it, but it's going to have a special meaning to me. And I do wonder, will we see a lot of sectors become more and more niche, but the people who
Right.
remain in those sectors are actually really talented and can do a really, really good job. So I think it probably will take, if you're in your sector and you're pretty average at what you do, I think that's probably where you need to be worrying to a certain degree. But I think if you're able to be really good and develop your skills and make yourself a bit unique with what you do, kind of find your own niche of how to do that job really well. Technically, I don't think you should be that worried about AI. In fact, you could probably
Mm.
utilize AI to help you become unique in a certain way. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm talking a lot from the top of my head here, but I think I don't see us all kind of sitting at home with nothing to do. I think we'll find new things to do. I think we'll find new ways to work. We'll find new ways to find meaning. We'll find new ways to find a purpose and to express ourselves. Um, I don't know entirely what they are yet, but if you look at history, we've always done that. When the world has changed through technology, and not I'm not just talking about digital technology, but going back to the farming and agriculture, when the world changes and we start to live in different ways, we find new things to do and new things
Mm.
that will take our focus. So yeah, I'm not too worried. I am worried about the process though, because I think it can be full of pain. People will lose jobs and so on. But I mean, let me go back to the positives. I don't think necessarily teachers will lose their jobs. I remember someone
No.
saying to me, like, when YouTube started to get really popular. In fact, a really good friend of mine, he's just died recently, actually. But I remember him saying, if a YouTube video can replace you, then you should be replaced. Um, and I think it's probably like this with AI and it being a teacher. If an AI can replace you as a teacher, then probably you should be replaced. But actually,
Mm.
I think we'll find most teachers, probably all teachers, can't be replaced with an AI because actually a big part of learning is that human connection. It's the human motivation. It's the relationship, and
Yeah.
I can't really do that at the moment. I always add that caveat because I think we get into dangerous territory if we're always saying AI can't do something because I think it'll probably prove us wrong eventually. But I do kind of hope that we can use AI to help us focus on being more human and being.
Mm.
Now, I do think AI will replace some of what we do as educators, and to be honest, thank goodness.
Thankfully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like what you were saying before, Cindy, about like being like part of the machine, being a part of being like a cog in that. Hopefully, we can stop that side of it, like stop being handcuffed to our computers or devices, almost like they're an extension of us. And actually, hopefully, AI can help automate some of that and do some of that for us in a trusted way, so that we can actually spend more time with students, spend more time being human, maybe even spending more time on what we've traditionally called those soft skills of
Yeah.
the human skills and focus more on the humanity side of development rather than the knowledge side of development. And I say that in a very crude, broad way, but hopefully you get what I mean.
No, I think the theme that's resonated through the entire conversation is the phrase that you said earlier, the what's your out. And I think that when we properly leverage AI, we have more outs.
Mm.
And I think we can think of that as limiting and it's kicking us out. But instead we can say, how might I create more pathways for myself so that no matter which way we go in the future, I have outs. And I think that becomes the function of education. And we as school leaders need to keep this in mind, that we're preparing students for this unknowable future. So the best thing we can do is create deeply human, empathetic, curious little people who lean into their humanity and have those outs.
Yeah, and I think to take that even one step further, I think what we're talking about there is adaptability, aren't we? Like someone who is always, and adaptability. I think we throw that word around quite a bit. Adaptability is not a state of mind necessarily. It's actually just bloody hard work.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I was meant to, if I can say that word. It's
I think it's fine.
but it's adaptability isn't necessarily a mindset. Like I say, it's about actually working hard to be able to adapt to something new. And I think like what you're saying there about that, it's about having your out. I think that's it. It's about being adaptable, and adaptability is the key skill, especially with how much progress is going to be happening in the world over the next few decades. It should be the key skill we're teaching our students, and it should be the key skill. And that's difficult. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we were talking about how we're kind of evolutionarily programmed to not like change because
Right.
because we need that routine, and because we need to know what's safe, what's not safe. So our ancient ancestors weren't going, oh, let's try that berry off that tree and then die. And we needed to stay with what we were eating and not be too inquisitive, because it could mean we were unsafe if that was the case. We've kind of in an evolution level, we're not all that comfortable with change.
Our brains like predictability. Yeah,
Yeah,
patterns and predictability.
yeah, absolutely. So I totally get that. Even with my job, like I constantly having to be dealing with learning the next thing, learning, and even that like almost is painful in some respects. Like because just when you think
Mm.
you know this technology and you can start
Ho, 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 ho.
helping other people, you've got to then adapt again. You've got to adapt again. And in a sense, it's painful. But I think those who will, and how do I phrase this? How those who will win out, those who will succeed in this world, I think will be the ones who can adapt and who can keep grounding themselves, going right. What's my out? How do I adapt? What skills do I need? What do I need to learn now? And make that again. We're getting to the stage of where how do we make time for this? I know that's going to be difficult, but how do we make that part of our routine so that we're not
Right.
necessarily taking those outs, like we say, but where we've developed other passions where we're learning and can then shift direction and pivot if we need to.
Right. And if AI is going to give us 10 hours, that's Toddle's goal is let's get 10 hours of teacher's work week back.
Right.
If we're going to give you 10 hours back, don't spend it watching TV.
Yeah.
Spend it,
Yeah.
growing that brain of yours, growing that adaptability, and
Absolutely.
yeah, replacing work with other work that's a little more passion driven.
Yeah.
Hard. It's a tough pill to swallow, but I think it is the reality, which is I had no idea where this conversation was going to go, and it's kind of a weird episode, but I think it's really cool and really helpful. I hope school leaders. I just think it's such an important theme and trend to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we could have gone really practical on this and talked about different tools and different ways to use AI. All of that. I mean, you can if you go to my website, the AIeducator.io. There's all of that on there. If you follow me on social media, I've got a lot of practical guides and stuff. But I think sometimes, especially on a podcast, I think it's nice to be able to just think a bit more broader and think, well, where is this going? Because you type into Google top 10 AI tools for teachers, you'll find hundreds of people.
We don't need more listicles. Yeah.
Yeah. And I sometimes do that myself as well, just because it's sometimes people just need the practical stuff, which is fair enough. But um, I think I'm really, a lot of what I do is moving more to the strategic side of this, and moving more to helping district administrators, superintendents, and leadership teams to start to think, well, where's this going, and how do we prepare for something that is unknown? And which is really difficult. And I think it goes back to, again, to what we were saying before. It's almost easier to prepare for what we know, because we go, right, well,
Right.
and that it frustrates me quite a bit. Actually, I see, like, especially on social media, when people think that they've grasped AI and they go, right, it's almost like they've gone, right, we know what AI is now, we know what ChatGPT is. Here's a plan. Here's
Tick,
what we
tick.
do about it, and it's really easy. I'm like, by the time you plan for that, a bit like your question, by the time you plan for that, the world will have moved on quite considerably. So actually, what's the most difficult thing to do is to strategize for the unknown. And I think that's when we have to start stepping back from the almost practical elements and go, well, actually, how do we put the systems in place, or the levers in place that we can pull depending on the certain scenarios. So what I do is I'll work with a group of leaders, and we'll look at, well, how can we, I call it a box 3 group. So how do we create a box 3 group that can look at non-linear innovation? So the strategic model I look at is the 3-box solution to innovation, where we go, right, box 1 is all about how can AI help us do what we're already doing better. And that's
Right.
where most people start with this. In fact, it's needed. It's much needed. It's the saving time stuff. It's the getting to success, but a bit faster or a bit more efficiently, or whatever it is, saving that time and we, my goodness, we need that, and the average teacher out there needs that. But if we're going to be honest with ourselves, AI will probably not just help us do what we've always done better, but it'll probably start disrupting majorly what we do, and so we need another type of innovation. Like that first type of innovation is linear innovation, because it's still moving in that one line. We need some non-linear innovation. And that is essentially, to give it another name, it's creating the future. It's reimagining the system. It's not making the system better like box 1 does. It's recreating the system, and I think we need some of that as well. So a lot of the work I do is go, right, well, let's look at box 1. Let's introduce the tools, the strategy, the policy, and let's start doing that. But also, we're going to need some function within the organization to go, well, actually, what if in 5 years' time there's a lot more competition out there for our students, which I think there will be in terms of educational platforms and products and alternatives out there. How do we stay relevant? How do we not become irrelevant? And I think good leadership is about balancing box 1 with box 3, in order to keep things going, keep making things better, but also be creating the out. I guess it's back to the out, isn't it? It's creating the next ship that we're going to have to jump on when this ship starts to sink slowly, which will happen. I think it happens to businesses all the time. I think the education system has been kind of immune to it for the last few decades.
But we already see it happening.
Yeah,
Homeschooling is on the rise. Lots of different alternative solutions to education.
absolutely.
So yeah, if we cling to things as they are, there's no guarantees that the way things are will be.
Yeah. So I guess, in fact, your help. That's why I love these conversations, because I get to think through things as well. But I suppose what I do is about creating an out, not just for the individual, but for the actual.
That's your next book, man. What's your out?
Yeah, I'm actually writing a book about this at the minute, and I haven't come up with a title yet, but that could be it. That could be cool. Yes, yeah. So I think we need to start doing that. And to give a cliched example, who goes to Blockbusters on a Friday night anymore? Like, Blockbusters are a pure example of a box 1 organization,
Right.
where I don't even think they knew box 3 existed. And actually, in the early 2000s, they were given the chance to buy Netflix.
Yeah,
they were, and they refused. And now they failed to grasp that there was a future of their industry being created, and that it would eventually take over. Now, it might not have took over. They didn't know that. They didn't have a. They. It's easy in hindsight.
Nobody has a crystal ball.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they could have made a calculated decision and went, right, well, why don't we buy it anyway, just in case that's our out in the next few years. And I think it's what clever organizations do. It's what a lot of businesses are starting to do. This kind of this third box thinking. And I think we need to do it in education, and not just for our sake as educators, but for the actual students. Like, are we so that we could so that we're providing an environment and an education to them that will actually help them thrive in this new world. Because I really, honestly don't think. I think, and I feel bad about saying this because I love the education system at the same time, and I'm very much a part of it. But I think a lot of our students go on to succeed in life in spite of the system, not because of the system. And actually, education
Right.
is not an end in itself, but it's a means to an end. And I think we have to start thinking of, well, education actually probably should be more the means to an end. And hopefully along the way we're planting seeds of the love of education and the love of lifelong learning. And I think that should be a real part of it. But actually, we're not we can't train everybody in society to be a philosopher who loves knowledge. Like, that's just it's impractical. It needs to be a means to an end, I think, because for their sake. Because I mean, again, most jobs you probably spend more time at work than you do with your family at home. You're there for the best hours of your day, um, so it needs to be fulfilling. It needs to be a big part of your happiness, I think. So, and if school's not preparing you for a fulfilling work, then I don't think it's doing its job. I don't think to help people succeed and have a happy life. So this conversation's just going in every single direction here. So, I'm relying on you
I love it.
to pull it back.
No, yeah, again, it's the thread of purpose, intentionality, and adaptability. I think it keeps being what we come back to. So I think leaders listening, get grounded in your purpose, get grounded in your why. Why do you do what you do, and why will you do what you do in spite of a changing future? And how do we create space for outs for ourselves, for our learners, for our institutions? I think what a beautiful takeaway. I hope that message came through, because I think it's a really cool aha for me today.
Yeah, me too. And thanks for helping me talk about this and just clarify some ideas as well. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks and when you've published the book, come back on and we'll chat again and see how your thinking has changed.
Yeah, definitely. We can get a bit more practical then, I think, because
Awesome.
the book's quite practical.
Love it. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.